Well, I didn't like that. Let's try that one more time. Sometimes things happen. Try that again.
You're listening to KTST FM, Orange County. Now broadcasting from coast to coast and around the world at KTSTFM.com. Stay tuned for more.
Well, that's better. We are back. I am Craig Barry, joined by Alan Hamburger on the second hour of the Craig Barry Experience. Hey, Alan, thank you very much for coming today.
My pleasure.
Well, that's good. You know, we know we'll have a very fun time. You can say hi to our audience on Ustream. Wave to that camera.
Hello, audience.
And wave to this camera on YouTube, because I'm taping just you, because no one needs to see my ugly face twice.
Hello, YouTube.
There you go. And, of course, the TheCraigBarryExperience.com, KTSTFM.com, the whole 9 yards. Well, Alan, you mentioned earlier you grew up in Cincinnati. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, but before I start, I want to make a particular declaration that I want to let the audience know that I am not what you would call politically correct.
That's okay.
But I am environmentally correct because all my material is recycled. So if anybody thinks they heard this joke before, they probably did, but I'm the one that's up here remembered to tell it and not you. So just let me get that out of the way ahead of time. Yeah, I grew up in Cincinnati. I was raised in a circus. You know, I always wanted to run away and join an orphanage. That was always my goal as a kid, but I never actually did it, you know. Yeah. I guess the worst thing is, you know what, I don't think I was actually wanted. I remember so many times my parents were telling people they wish they had some children that lived. And that, you know, it didn't make me and my sister feel too good at the time, you know. It just.
And you didn't even have a sister.
No. My earliest memory was when my dad used to tell me to go play in the traffic, you know, which was another thing that wasn't so much fun. But
did we have the same parents?
Possibly.
Yes.
But I guess, you know, when I was quite an athlete when I was back in school. Once I actually kicked the ball 60 yards, and the coach wasn't even impressed. And I've been thinking about it, and I came to the conclusion it's because I was playing third base at the time. All these years, I wondered why nobody said good kick.
Good kick.
You know, actually, I finished school when I was 16. I could only take so much of the third grade. And I decided it was time to get out of here. I remember early in the fourth, fifth grade, my one teacher, she said that, you know, I would make a good astronaut. And my parents said, why? She says, because Alan takes up space in school.
Oh.
You know, so
I wish I had a drum roll. You know?
Well, I mean, it's just do it, you know, the way it goes sometimes.
So
you know,
were you happy as a kid?
Well, you know, I had sort of low self-esteem. My first summer job that I ever had, I took a job because with low self-esteem. I took a job at McDonald's as a speed bump. They had a good medical plan in those days, but you know, I mean, I found out when I was 17 I could never have children. I mean, my doctor said you don't have a uterus, and besides, I think you ought to get off the pill. You know, so that's a little superfluous. You know. Actually, I was sort of young. Once I had a cold for 6 consecutive years. They found out I was allergic to Kleenex. You know, so the first day I stopped blowing my nose, you know, it went away. You know, so that was
allergic to Kleenex.
Yeah. So that's sort of some of the experience that I remember as a child. I'm not trying to completely blot it out. I remember Barry mentioned earlier about his mother. You know, my mother's 94. She still lives back in Ohio, but she has a lot of problems relating to certain things. I mean, for instance, I tried to tell her once what carjacking is, and I said, Mom, what they do here in California is they steal the car while you're still in it. I said, and then they'll hit you over the head and shove you over to the passenger side so they can escape the police in something out here we call the diamond lane, where it takes 2 people to be in the car to ride in that. And she can't relate to that at all. I also sent her once for her birthday a couple years ago. I sent her a cactus plant. And she said, it's really nice. She says, but when do I water it? And I said, well, Mom, you get the Weather Channel, don't you? And she said, yes. I said, watch it every day. Whenever it's raining in Arizona, water it. So I think she she was able to.
Wow.
But I talked to a friend of mine I hadn't talked to for like 30 years, and we connected. I don't remember how, and he said to me, he says, "How long have you been living in Canada?" And I said, "What makes you think I'm living in Canada?" He said, "Well, last time I talked to your mom, she said you were a stand-up Canadian." So.
Did we have the same mother? That's great. Now, where did you go to college?
Actually, I went to the University of Cincinnati, which is a very nice school. I ended up with getting a BA in economics, which I always have contended makes me a perfect example of unskilled labor.
That's why you became a comedian, right?
Well, I tried to become a comedian. It's still going.
So how did you become a comedian?
Well, my whole life I've been in sales. And I always use humor as a way, as an intro in establishing rapport with potential customers. I mean, if somebody's laughing, they have to sort of like you before they're willing to buy anything. That's sort of a premise. So some of the world's greatest salesmen never told a joke in their life, but it seemed to work for me, and I just carried it over into my personal life.
You know, I'm also in sales during the week, as I've told you, and I carry it in my personal life too. I try to make jokes. Usually I try to, but my problem is I'm one of those Don Rickles type comedians who will make fun of them to their face. So it doesn't quite work for me.
Well, I that's not my style, but I was just thinking, you were talking the other day, let me tell you what a typical week for me. People say, what's a typical week for you in California? Right?
Wait. Let me set this up for you. Alan, what's a typical week for you in California?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened. Let me go for my last week, Okay, Monday.
All right.
Okay, I got this blue stuff on my hands from the toilet bowl. I had to wash them 2,000 times to get it off. Basically, Monday was a wash. That was it. Tuesday, I locked my coat hanger in the car, but luckily I had my keys on me, so I was able to get that out. That didn't turn out to be a major problem,
Luckily, yes.
Yeah, so, Wednesday I was having a problem with my eyes, so I went to this optimist, and he said, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay," and I started seeing better almost immediately,
There you go.
I went into the Del Amo Mall, and I walk up there. First I come to this big sign with an arrow that says, "You are here," and I was thinking, how did they know? I'm looking around. Don't see any cameras or anything like that. So then I'm walking down a mall. The first thing I see is there's a sign in front of a jewelry store. They've got a little thing out there. It says, "Ears pierced while you wait." And I was thinking, isn't that great? You don't have to leave them. You can just go in there and get them pierced. So there are a lot of people probably really impressed by that. So I'm standing there looking in this window. And I look next to me. There's this girl standing next to me with these really big boobs. And she's wearing this shirt that says Guess. And I looked at her and I said, "Implants?" So she laughed. So it didn't really seem like a pretty good guess at the time. And then I'm walking a little further on. I'm walking past Victoria's Secret, and there's this young girl standing out there. And I walked by. She said, "Sir," she says, "today all our bras are 50% off." And I said, "I prefer it when bras are 100% off." And she said, "Well, that would make them free, wouldn't it?" I said, "Yeah, that would make them free." But no witnesses to that particular thing. So it's just, you want some those conversations. They're funny and they're retelling, but they're better if you were there live.
Right.
So I'm walking along the mall, and I hear this woman say, "But honey, it's not our baby." He said, "Be quiet. It's a better stroller." So I don't know whether I should have turned him in or not, but I just, went walking along and didn't bother to say anything more than that. And then this was the worst experience was, that these things that they call them the love meter. You're supposed to put your finger in it, right? And then it measures how sexy you are.
Yeah.
Well, when the cop was taking me away, that's when I realized I was supposed to put my finger in that thing. Even though the needle did go all the way over to very sexy, it still turned out to be not the thing to do.
Why not?
Well, Wednesday, my car wouldn't start, and I got beat up hitchhiking. I used the wrong finger. That was
that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I guess it probably could, but that's just sort of typical to me in my life going around. Last year I took up photography as a hobby, and I always like to get pictures of people looking very frightened and running away. So I made up my camera to look like a rifle. So I got those kind of shots. But I gave up photography because I went crazy trying to take a close-up of the horizon. I never was able to do that, no matter how hard I tried, you know. It just,
you know that our listeners, half of those people will not get that joke. It's great.
Okay, well, listen. I mean, I always pander to the highest common denominator. So those of you who get that, thank you so much.
And the rest of you, thank you for listening.
Yes.
Oh man, so that's a typical week. Now I live in L.A. too, and I live in the South Bay, like you do, and that Del Amo Mall, even though they're redoing it, looks nice. That is a typical week in the Del Amo Mall, isn't it?
For somebody like me.
Yeah, especially going into the Victoria's Secret.
I actually had lunch at B.F. Chang. You know, I was sitting there when they brought me my fortune cookie.
Yes.
I opened it up and I had to check from the guy at the next table. I looked over and I said, "I got your check." He said, "Thanks."
Oh, I hope that never happens to Amy B and me.
Yeah.
Pardon my voice. I'm
So
a little hoarse. I'm a pony.
I had so much stuff I wanted to share with you today.
Go ahead.
And
Yep.
everything from my first experiences in L.A. to my... Well, I guess I should go, or I will go over some of my... I was married a long time ago.
I'm sorry.
I was married to a girl I met on the beach in Spain from... I lived in Europe for most of my 20s, so I met a girl from Holland, from Amsterdam, and we ended up getting married, and it was very interesting in a way. You know, I mean, our marriage ceremony wasn't like your traditional, even though it was overseas. I remember the minister said, "If there's anyone here present who thinks this union will last a lifetime, speak up now so the rest of us can get a good laugh." You know. And then, I mean, I never realized how cheap she was till we exchanged rings, you know, and on the box it said "some assembly required."
Nice.
So that was a you know, but you know, a lot of people that knew us, they referred to it as a storybook romance, her and I, you know, but it turned out to be written by Stephen King, you know, so so it was very, very, but I mean, my wife, we were young, you know, her 20s, she was rather immature, you know, and I mean, I don't know how many times the first year we were married, I'd be like taking a bath, minding my own business, and she'd come in and sink all my little boats, you know, and she was sort of eccentric. She liked to soak her panties in the sink, you know. Sometimes she'd sit in there for 2-3 hours at a time, you know, which we only had the one bathroom, you know, so that was...
She would wash her panties in the sink.
She'd soak her panties in the sink, but she was still wearing them when she soaked them in there. That was
gotcha.
That was the whole thing, you know.
Gotcha.
But actually, when we were married, you know, we used to have sex almost every night. You know, like almost on Monday and almost on Tuesday and almost on Wednesday. You can relate to that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can, and I know Amy B is listening at home. Amy, I'm only kidding. No, I'm not. And she says this is great, by the way. She texted me, Alan. She said you're one of the funniest people she's ever heard. She's on the floor crying right now, only because she just saw a picture of me.
Oh, I thought she saw a picture of me.
Well, no, you're a good-looking guy.
But she, you know, I remember. But she was insecure. I told her once. I said, you know, I think I need a new toilet bowl cleaner. You know, and she said, "Look, if you want a divorce, just say so." You know, I mean, I thought that was a little bit funny. And then once she said, I think they should outlaw divorce. And I said, look, if they're going to outlaw divorce, then they have to legalize drugs. I said, you can't have it both ways, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, but I'll tell you, we used to have a lot of arguments and stuff like that, and you know, just newlywed first time, everything. I mean, I remember once she said to me, "You don't understand me." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she used to say I didn't pay enough attention to her, and I think that's what she said. But
something to that effect.
Something to that effect, you know. But you know, a lot of people don't even realize when their marriage is in trouble, you know. But I figured out, you know, when the plumber would come and stay for the weekend, you know, and he's just being thorough. I thought. And once we moved to a different city, had the same mailman, and I said, "Oh, you got transferred too," you know.
Oh.
But I guess your really good clue is when your wife comes to one day and says, "Guess who wants to go out with me?" You know, that's probably a clue that your marriage is in trouble.
And you say who?
You know, I just remind me of something I saw the other day. They now have a new Playboy magazine out specifically for married men. It's basically the same as the regular Playboy, but every month they have the same centerfold. So lot of you guys might want to subscribe to that one just to keep in the thing. But once before I actually got divorced, we went for counseling. And I remember the psychologist, we were sitting and he said to my wife, he said, "Do you and Alan have mutual climax?" And she said, "No, I think we got State Farm." You know, so
Oh, an insurance joke. Gotta love that.
And then one day I remember I went out of town. I had this sales job, and I came back in. She picks me up at the airport. First thing I said to her is, "Honey, I know what you've been doing when I'm out of town." And she said, "What?" She said, "I said, you've been playing with your vibrator." And she says, "How do you know?" I said, "Oh, your teeth are chipped."
Is she blonde?
No.
Oh,
No. But one thing about when I was married, I always forgot my mistakes right away. I figure there's no reason for two people to remember the same thing, you know.
Yeah. How long were you married?
Actually, 5 years.
5 years. Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well, I never had any children because I realized at an early age that McDonald's was producing 3 to 4 billion a year, so there wasn't any need for me to bring any more hamburgers into the world.
That's true. That's true.
So, what do we want to go over now? I have
whatever you'd like. We have a few minutes before the first commercial break of this hour, but wow, Alan, you are hilarious. Now, how has single life treated you here in La La Land?
Well, you know, my hero in my comedic career was Rodney Dangerfield, whose favorite line was, "I don't get no respect."
I'll tell you.
So since Rodney passed away a few years ago, I have assumed the number one with no respect. And it's just, you know, it's a continual battle for me. I mean, the last time I drove up to a Motel 6, they saw me coming and turned the lights out.
Tom Bodette did that.
Not supposed to do that. I mean, the guy at Burger King told me I could have it their way.
There you go. I have a great Rodney one for you.
Oh, well, let's hear it.
All right. Can I do it in my Rodney voice?
I hope so. I can't.
All right. I'll tell you, the other day, I said to my son, "When are you going to have kids of your own?" He looked at me and said, "When are you?" Huh.
Yeah, I remember when Rodney said that.
I do too.
He told me, he said, "I gave my kid a BB gun for Christmas. He gave me a sweatshirt with a bullseye in the back, you know?"
Oh, Rodney was great. I was privileged enough to have seen Rodney live. He and Soupy Sales were on the same ticket. So by the end of the show, I needed to change my pants because between the two of them,
yeah, well,
Soupy Sales was a very underrated stand-up. Now, have you done other gigs besides McDonald's? You know, walking up to strangers.
I recently they had a open mic night at this little club down in Long Beach. So, you know, I signed up. As soon as I walked out on the stage, this guy starts screaming, "Get off! Get off!" You know, I looked down. I was standing on his hand. So that was a sort of a bad start, but I still continued, you know. And I actually told jokes that night. We were supposed to have a small limit. I told jokes for almost an hour, and I would have gone on even longer, but the place had really bad security, and all the people got away.
You shouldn't be doing this at a prison.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a prison, but one thing I found out, I would pass this on to any other would-be comedians. If you are going to perform anywhere, you want to do it in a place that serves alcohol, because after a couple of drinks, almost anybody thinks you're funnier than before they had the drinks. I mean, recently I had the misfortune to do a gig in this coffee house in San Pedro, you know. I wasn't even on the stage a minute, and I heard his voice say, "Never come back here again." You know, I can't believe I said that out loud, but...
It's one of those. On that note, we have to pay a couple of bills, but we will be right back with Alan Hamburger on the Craig Barry Experience on KTSTFM.com, Anaheim's own net radio, the TheCraigBarryExperience.com, my website where my mug is all over it, Ustream.tv where you get to see me, and where you get to see Alan right now in a close-up, and he kind of looks like Robin Williams a little bit. On YouTube, and that will be going up on the website as well. So we'll be right back right after these messages from, I don't know.
So I'm sitting and clicking Bang! Gorgeous, hot, and sexy models like you've never seen.
Yeah?
I'm telling you, what a website. I started ordering right online, and then my engine was roaring and my rocket was ready.
Hey, hope the wife don't find out.
You kidding? She told me about it. Anyway, finally I can get my hands on what I've wanted my whole life.
You mean...
Yeah, supermodels.
You're kidding.
No, model trains, model planes, model rockets, ehobbies.com. Rocks.
A new world for hobbyists and free shipping with a $25 minimum purchase. That's ehobbies.com.
You open your car door. Put your keys down on the driver's seat. Open the back door. Remove your child from the car seat. Set the automatic locks. Shut the door. Only to realize you just locked your keys in the car. Don't fret. Smith Lock and Safe will be there to unlock your car. Just simply call Georgette at 310-530-2364. Smith Lock and Safe is the one-stop provider for all your lock needs. Visit them at their new location at 2069 Pacific Coast Highway in Lomita, California, or call them 310-530-2364. Ask for Georgette and tell her Craig Barry sent you.
According to scientists who study this stuff, people blink their eyes 20,000 times a day. So if you're not careful, you could easily miss how fast Geico Auto Insurance starts working on your claim. Often we can handle details in hours instead of days. And in just 15 minutes, or roughly 210 bats of an eye, Geico could save you 15%. So call Geico at 1-800-947-AUTO. You may blink twice when you see the savings. That's 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
All right, well, we are back. I am Craig Barry, and I'm here with Alan Hamburger today. Yes, that's his real name. It's it's better than my real name. I mean, Barry is my first name, but no one has to know my last name, and that's why I go by Craig Barry. Anyways, what was you were mentioning while we were listening to these commercials?
I have a tip that, and
yes.
As I'm getting older, my memory isn't as good as it used to be. So what I've done right now is I've changed my password. Anybody have a problem with their passwords on different sites and stuff? I changed my password on all my logins to incorrect. So when I log in with the wrong password, my computer says your password is incorrect.
I love it.
So you guys might want to use that one, and you have no problem logging in.
That's pretty funny. Incorrect password.
Yeah,
so,
that's.
So tell me a little bit about dating in LA.
Dating in LA.
Yes.
Oh, it's a long, hard story. The first woman I ever met when I came to LA, I was standing in line at the DMV where we have to go, and was talking to this woman, and she says, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm not working right now. I just recently got out of prison." And she said, "Really? What were you in prison for?" I said, "I murdered my wife." And she said, "Oh, you're single." So I thought, man, this is the women in LA are not going to be as tough as I heard they were. But actually, she told me that her nickname was Federal Express. And I said, "How did you ever get a nickname like that?" She said, "Well, if I go home with a guy," she says, "I absolutely positively have to be there overnight." So that first date turned out to be okay, but that was quickly followed up. The next woman I met, she told me her ex-boyfriend had nicknamed her Cutie, and she was sort of attractive, so that seemed okay until I found out it stood for chronic urinary tract infection. So we'd stay, but so I had experience, when I first came here, I'm going in, as a single guy, I'm going into happy hour and the single bars and stuff like that, trying to meet women. I mean, I had a really bad success in the beginning. I mean, the very first person I ever went up to, I said, "What could I do to turn you on?" She said, "You got any friends?"
I've heard that line before
Then
from women.
then I went, any women in the audience now who think they're being bugged, if you take notes from now on in the next few minutes, you'll find a lot of lines that you can use on some poor sap that you weren't witty enough to come up with, but they've all been used on me, and you may want to use them. It's okay. And I apologize to the men who I'm giving this stuff out to.
Oh, go ahead.
So I met up with this woman. I said, "Can I buy you a drink?" And she said, "Sure, as long as you go away and let me drink it by myself."
Wow.
So that was not at all.
Were you going for women from Orange County?
It didn't matter.
Oh, it didn't matter.
It pretty much was my dating, some of my dating stories. I remember this one girl. I said, "What'd you like to have for dinner?" She said, "I like foreign food." Now, so we went Dutch. Well, of course, she wasn't that impressed by that for some reason. I don't know why. But
that's funny too.
so
The YouTube video just stopped, but that's okay. I'm going to keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Well, okay, right now I'd say, my sex life isn't that really exciting right now. I mean, if it wasn't for static cling in my underwear right now, I wouldn't have any sexual excitement at all. I'd say the most romantic thing that's happened to me in the last 3 months is when I had a physical and my doctor told me to cough. So. But I do remember the last time I had sex, my eyes were burning. I thought I caught some kind of a disease or something. Then I realized it was just a mace, so that was quite a relief when I looked at. So, talking to this woman on the internet, she said, what are you looking for in a relationship? Are you looking for somebody to make your life happy and complete and fulfilled? I said, no, basically I'm just looking for somebody with low expectations. Somebody I can drag down to my level, but...
Yeah, I think I married someone who is way out of my league too.
Well, I'm the kind of guy, I have to admit, sometime in the course of my dating experiences, I haven't always done the right thing. I remember once I had dinner with this woman and we were walking on the beach and she's holding my hand. She says, Alan, I'm not wearing any underwear. And I said, what, did you forget to do your laundry? So that was not one of the coolest moves I've ever had. So I met this woman at one of these happy hours, and I gave her my card. And she calls me up a couple days later. She says, you remember me? And I said, sure, because she was like an attractive blonde. And I said, what's going on? She said, I'm sort of lonely tonight, sort of depressed. She said, I'm in my apartment right now. She said, I'm laying on my bed naked. She says, I have mirrors on the walls and mirrors on the ceiling. She says, come on over and bring a bottle. I took Windex. Okay, again, not the coolest move I could have made, but I mean, I've had several women who actually treated me like a piece of meat, which a lot of guys would think that wasn't that bad, but they were both vegetarians.
Oh,
so that was not exactly like. No, just last week I was at this happy hour and I walking around talking to several women and. This one woman, we were talking. We just happened to walk out the door at the same time. And I looked at her and I said, your place or mine? She said, they both sound good. I said, yeah. She says, you go to your place, I'll go to mine.
Oh.
Oh, come on. I don't see any sympathy coming from any of these stories.
Well, I have sympathy because I was there. Before I was married, believe it or not, closing the deal was an interesting thing for me.
Well, this one woman I've been talking to on the internet, she said, before I have sex, she said, I need at least an hour of foreplay. And I said, gee, I sure hope that includes a drive over. Once again, she was actually, some of my early experiences when I came to L.A., and before we had all these internet dating, I actually had put an ad in the L.A. Times in the personal section, and the first ad I put in, the first week, I got like 100 responses from men.
Why?
Well, because I thought SWF stood for Seeking Woman Friend.
Oh, well, not quite. But
so I first time last week I saw they'd actually have a personals listed on Craigslist.
Yes.
And you wouldn't believe who's actually looking for somebody on Craigslist now. I'm pretty sure it's John Bobbitt.
Why is
I
that?
saw this one ad. It said single and unattached.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure that was John.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't. But I'll tell you, I'm the kind of guy that, I was willing to admit after some time that probably I wasn't maybe the greatest catch. So, I was willing to work on improving myself.
Sure.
A lot of guys never would. So, I took some workshops, some seminars, but it just didn't work out for me the right way. When I took this one course, it was called How to Get in Touch with Your Feminine Side, and I came down with a yeast infection. Okay, I took another one. It was How to Discover Your Inner Child, and I started wetting the bed again. Very bad, right? But I guess I did take one weekend workshop that really has turned out to be great for me. It was for single people. It was called How to Be Alone in L.A., and I was the only one in the class. So I learned how to be alone, and it's been really helpful to me ever since.
Oh, this is great. So How to be alone in L.A. All right, so tell us about your childhood in Cincinnati.
Well, it was just a typical. I mean, if you grow up with the name Hamburger, you know how cruel kids can be, and you can imagine that Hamburger there's no better source of teasing than you could if you had that name. But obviously, it didn't warp my personality. It made me the person I am today.
Sure.
Old and bitter.
You're not bitter.
No. No, and I think my listeners can see that. I mean, how many times I've tried to give a woman my card, and they always look at me and say, "I already got your number." That's I don't really. So I had a date recently. I thought we had a good time. I took her home. She gives me a little hug. She says, "Alan, you're a nice guy. I had a great time." She said, "I just want to let you know I'm not interested in getting serious." I said, "Really?" I said, "What's your idea of serious?" She said, "Well, in your case, it will be a second date." But last Saturday morning, I showed I'm the kind of guy, I know how to show a woman a good time. Last Saturday morning, I took this woman horseback riding. She was having a really good time until I ran out of quarters.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You could even tell that joke that you told me in McDonald's if you want.
I don't remember which one that was. Which one was that, Barry?
About the 9-year-old girl who was throwing all her boyfriend's stuff out the window.
No, I didn't tell you that. It must have been somebody else. Why don't you tell it to
everybody?
everybody?
Then I'll tell it. All right. So, oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble here because I'm not a comedian and I'm not funny. I just look that way. Anyway, so this 9-year-old girl is throwing all of her boyfriend. I screwed up the joke. All right. Anyway, so this guy comes home and all of his stuff is in the front lawn, and he's really concerned. And he says, "What?" He goes in. And he says, "What are you doing?" to his girlfriend. "I found out something bad about you," she said. "Oh, really? What'd you find out?" "I found out you're a pedophile." And she said, "Yes, you're a pedophile. I found out, so I want you out." And he looks at her and goes, "Ooh, pedophile. That's a very big word for a 9-year-old. See, I screwed it up.
Yeah, you shouldn't have told in the beginning. You shouldn't have. But that was really good. But, I was the kind of guy in school, actually, I flunked history when I was back in high school. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can remember some of the questions. Like, one of the questions the teacher asked once was, how did Van Gogh lose his ear? And I wrote down, he lent it to Mark Antony. So that wasn't really good. And I remember the one science teacher, he said the question was, what is the international date line? And I wrote down, "Hi, can I buy you a drink?"
Oh, that's awesome.
But I do remember one thing I learned from history class. I always put ice cream on my pie because I remember the famous line, "Remember the Alamode."
Remember the Alamode. That's awesome.
So those are some of the things.
Remember the Alamode.
Yeah, that's a famous line from history.
Of course.
I was actually listening to Rush Limbaugh the other day.
I'm so sorry to hear
that. He said, according to the latest stats, still in this year, at this point in time, 28% of Americans are homophobic. And I was thinking, how could that many people be afraid to go home? I mean, they got their stuff there, their pets. I sort of dispute that particular statistic.
That's funny. That's very funny. Only in America. So why would you listen to Rush Limbaugh? But that's besides the point.
Well, for the purpose of coming up with that joke.
Oh, there you go. that works. And so, what was the first joke you ever told?
I can't remember. It was probably some kind of I was trying to get out of something that my dad was going to cream me for, so I had to come up with something to my dad was actually, Hamburger is an old German Jewish name. He was married to my mother for 35 years, and he never told her he was Jewish.
Really?
Him and his brother came from Germany like at 1920, at the end of World War I, and
right.
I knew none of my relatives on my on my father's side, they all died in the camps over there. But actually, I can't be Jewish since my mother isn't Jewish. According to the religion, you have to be. I mean, now, do you know? I saw the other day at the bookstore. There's a new Jewish self-help book out right now. It's called "Guilt Without Sex."
It's called Marriage.
I bet you don't know why 1,000 years ago the Jews came up with the concept of circumcision.
Why is that?
Because Jewish women aren't interested in anything unless there's at least 20% off.
Oh, true. True.
You know, actually, I know a couple of Jewish guys. They actually like to watch porno movies backwards. You know why?
Why is that?
They like to see the prostitute giving the money back.
Oh, that's funny.
Well,
that's very funny.
I have a. This isn't exactly anything to do with Jews, but my neighbor is in a Bible study group, and I found out something last year that I never knew. Maybe our listeners, some of them this would be interesting for them too. Actually, when Jesus was born, there was actually 4 wise men came to the manger.
Okay.
But the 4th one actually showed up with fruitcake, and he was turned away.
Why was that?
His gift was fruitcake.
Yeah.
They didn't want it.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that.
That was not, well, gold, myrrh, salmon.
Oh,
but
okay.
fruitcake was not acceptable as far as.
Gotcha.
I actually found out when I was in Vegas last time that whenever Jews stay at the Luxor, they have to clean their own rooms, which is an interesting.
That's interesting.
It is. It is interesting.
Yeah. The Jews cleaning their own rooms.
Last time I went to Las Vegas, you know, I forgot my glasses. For 3 days, I played the change machine, but I broke even. So that's also a tip. But, you know, the last time I went to Vegas, you know, I stayed in one of these cheap rooms down by the Fremont Street. You know, as soon as I checked in, I called down to the desk, and I said, you know, I got a leak in my sink. The guy said, go ahead. I got a knock on the door. This is the maid standing there. She says, you mind if I clean up? I said, okay. She came in, took a shower, and left, you know. Then I came back around midnight, 1 a.m., and I called down to the desk, and I said, boy, your walls are thin. The guy said, what, can you hear your neighbors? I said, hear them. I said, I can see them, and they're really ugly.
You know, that's a funny joke. That one right there is funny because I've... been there.
You've been there.
I've been there.
I met a guy. I'm not a good gambler, but I met a guy that's worse than me. I was down on Fremont Street. There's a guy going down the street putting money in all the parking meters. He looks over at me and says, don't you love this outdoor gambling? He didn't win anything, but, you know, he
helped.
He certainly gave it his best shot.
So
you know.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing I was thinking about that a lot. You know the difference between men and women. Men are like more visual, and,
right.
and women are more auditory. You know, so like for a man gets turned on by what he sees, and a woman gets turned on by what she hears. So let's say if a guy sees a woman in a thong bikini, he gets really excited.
Right.
But if a woman sees a man in a thong, she doesn't get that impressed unless she hears he's got money.
That's true.
Just a little.
That's true. Yeah. Now, as a comedian, you mentioned Rodney was one of your biggest influences.
Yeah.
Who else?
Well, I don't like the Don Rickles to put down. I'm not one of those comedians when I'm on stage that I, you know, pick out whoever's in the first couple rows and, you know, and try to get conversations to put them. That is, I believe in one-liners and just get it on. It hits or misses, and it's interesting when I'm done. And sometimes there'll be 10, 15 people standing around, you know, and I'll say, what was your favorite one-liner? And if there's 10 people, there'll be like 8 different jokes resonated with somebody. You know the old expression, you know, this is something I also found out for your listeners. You heard the expression, laughter is the best medicine?
Yes.
It definitely is not true. I recently went to the sick ward in the hospital at Kaiser, and I laughed at those people for over half an hour, and they didn't seem to get better at all. So it's not, laughter is not necessarily the best medicine. And the other old adage that wives' tale is, you know, he who laughs last laughs longest. You know, it's been revised, in my opinion. He who laughs last thinks slowest. So, just some of these proverbs.
Awesome.
Some of these proverbs you might want to. You know, I mentioned that I lived in Europe for most of my 20s, my favorite country I lived in was Spain, but actually I went back to Spain recently. They still smoke so much in Spain, the first restaurant I went, the maitre d' said, you want smoking or chain smoking? Those are like the two sections, Right now, the Spanish flag actually has a picture of a pack of Marlboros on it, And you know what the motto of Spain is these days?
What's that? On that note, we have to pay a bill. That's awesome. We'll be right back. I am Craig Barry. You're listening to the Craig Barry Experience. I'm with Alan Hamburger. We'll be right back on KTSTFM.com.
Hey, buddy. Me? Job hunting on the internet, huh? Well, we got hot jobs, cool jobs, jobs that are absolute monsters. Just click on our homepage. Come on, click!
Hey, where are all the jobs?
Tired of internet job sites that lead you nowhere? Then log on to kforce.com. A new kind of job site, kforce.com. Over 2,000 recruiting specialists whose only job is to get you the job. kforce.com. Opportunity has a new address.
Is your loved one receiving compassionate care? Does your caregiver care for how your loved one is doing? Really? Well, at I Care for Your Loved One Compassionate Senior Services, we are expert in senior companionship, transportation, errands, assistance with activities of daily living, medication reminders, meal preparation, bathing, respite care, and of course, personal compassionate care. We are bringing the compassion back in caregiving. So please give us a call at 310-489-9111. 310-489-9111, or you can visit us on the web at icareforyourlovedone.com.
Hello, Pringles 800 number.
Yeah, hi. You made a mistake with my Pringles.
Sir?
See, it says fat-free on the can, but they don't taste fat-free.
Sir, if it says fat-free original Pringles, that's what they are.
Listen, talk to my wife. Blanche!
Yeah, hi. You made a mistake.
No, ma'am. Fat-free Pringles are made with Olean. That's why they taste just as good with no fat and half the calories.
No way. I know when it's missing that fakey no-fat taste. Listen, I'll mail you one. You taste it.
New fat-free Pringles. Tasting is believing.
Yes, and we are believing with Alan Hamburger. I'm Craig Barry. Travis will be in next. But, Alan, keep going. I mean, you have me in stitches here.
Well, I finished my story about Spain. Actually, 2 years in a row when I lived in Spain, I did the running with the bulls in Pamplona. A lot of people think that that's rather dangerous, but if you stay about 40 yards behind and you watch your step, it's really not that dangerous at all, You can definitely do the running in the bulls without getting in front of them.
Yeah.
That's one of my... So that's happened to me last week. I'm up in Beverly Hills, and I cut across the intersection. This little woman comes running up to me. She said, "You're jaywalking. That's gonna cost you $75." And I started panicking, and I said, "Will this go on my record?" I said, "Can I go to walking school?" I said, I had a friend, he got 3 jaywalking tickets in 1 week, and they took away his shoes. So she started laughing and pointed out that the crosswalk was up there and said, "I never heard that before. Go cross up there and don't do it again." So that's easy to get out of something like that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, walking school is great because the first day I came to Los Angeles, I got a jaywalking ticket.
Really?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
I was in Santa Monica at the 3rd Street Promenade, and in Massachusetts, the walk signs, they're merely suggestions.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so
it's serious here, huh?
Yeah, $200 ticket.
Barry, have you seen this new movie called Constipation?
No, I've got it, though.
It hasn't come out yet,
yeah.
So if you have, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, no.
I've been trying to write a joke about unemployed people, but it needs more work. I went to the pharmacy recently to buy some condoms, and the pharmacist said to me, "You want a bag?" And I said, "No, she's not that ugly."
Oh.
Yeah. So this little 8-year-old goes into the pharmacy, and he wants to buy a box of tampons, and the manager says, "For your mother, little boy?" He said, "No, it's for my little brother Billy. He's 4. She said, "Well, why would you buy tampons for your 4-year-old brother?" He said, "We were watching TV last week, and it said if you use these, you can swim, ride a bike, and play tennis, and he doesn't know how to do any of that stuff." So it seems,
Oh, that's great.
it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that is great. That's very funny. So, when did you were in your 20s when you lived in Europe?
Yeah.
When did you move to California?
I came here in '86.
86, a year
So
I graduated high school.
Yeah, I had a lot of bad experiences by then already. I was way ahead of you. Had a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, so
do you like to read, Barry?
Yeah, I like to read.
I'm currently reading this book. It's called Learn Speed Reading at Your Own Pace, which and I'm basically up to almost 100 words a minute now, so it's become quite helpful. I was in Borders last week, and they got this feminine book section. The number one seller this week is Women Are From Venus, Men Are Idiots.
That's pretty much.
I wanted to get this one book. It was called Curing Your Fear of Heights.
Yeah.
But when I entered, it was like way up on the top shelf, and I thought, there's no way I'm going up there after that. And then I took this workshop last year, and it was and one of our homework, we were supposed to get this book called Success Through Timing. So I went up to the Torrance Library. I walked in, up to the counter. The girl said the last copy was checked out about 10 seconds ago. So that's so actually I didn't mention this to you, but some of your listeners, but I actually wrote a book a few years ago for people with low self-esteem.
Oh, really?
It was called Looking Out for Number 6. And it got mixed reviews. Some people hated it and some people really hated it, so at least I'm a published author anyway,
There you go. Some people hated it, some people really hated it.
But I've tried a lot of these support groups and stuff. Last week I drove around for over 3 hours trying to find a meeting of this support group for people with no sense of direction. I went to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. The president gave me 7-1. I never quit.
Nice.
I was actually recently thrown out of the Torrance Reincarnation Club. The president told me to never come back.
Nice.
So, I actually joined AA recently, I still drink. I just use a different name.
Oh, yeah?
No, I joined AA because I needed the stage time. So Barry, do you happen to have AAA?
I do.
I had AAA for 26 years, and my membership was expiring last year, and I got a pamphlet in the mail for AA road surfing. It was like half as expensive, so I signed up for it. First time my car broke down, I called this 800 number. They sent over a bunch of ex-drunks, AA, and they started pushing my car, but they'd only go 12 steps, and then they quit. So I'm back to AAA again. If you get it in the mail, guys, I don't recommend you get that one.
Nice, I like that.
Here's a thought. What do you think? What does a group of proctologists call each other when they get mad?
What?
I don't know. Everybody should just think whatever comes to mind.
Hey, you should never shake hands with a proctologist.
Why is that? Oh, just because.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, and you know what a proctologist's favorite toast is, don't you?
No.
Bottoms up.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. That's very good. I didn't even think of that.
I actually get to be a straight man today, so this is kind of fun.
No,
this is good. This is good. You remind me a lot of Johnny Carson. You remember the late great Johnny Carson?
How could anybody not know Johnny? He was fantastic.
Yeah, your style. Remember his Karnak that he would do? He would take the cue card, put it right next to his head, and go sis, boom, ba. He'd open it up, blow in the envelope, go. What is the sound of an exploding sheep? And I'll never forget that.
Oh, that's a very good one.
Yeah, I love Johnny Carson. He was one of my favorites. So
yesterday night, actually, I went to it was like a fundraiser for a group of schizophrenics.
Okay.
Anyone who was everyone was there.
Yes. I went a little bit ahead of you on that one. That one's pretty funny.
Is it okay? Do you think it's okay for vegetarians to eat animal crackers? That's a thought. Do you know how you can tell a vegetarian at an outdoor restaurant?
How?
They're always leaning toward the sun.
I had to think of that one for a second. That's great.
Well, it's okay to think. I mean,
I try never to do that.
No, well, I don't believe that.
I can't think anymore.
So
I'm married.
I was at the movies recently, and I'm sitting there watching the previews, and this woman comes up and she walks in front of me. She steps on both of my feet. She doesn't say a word, right? She comes back like 10 minutes later. She's carrying a popcorn and a drink, and she leans over and said, "I just stepped on your feet a couple minutes ago." I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, good. I just want to make sure I was in the right row." And then recently I took this woman to the movies, first date, and this steamy love scene comes on. She leans over and says, "In a couple hours, that could be us." The thing is, she leaned over to the guy on the other side of her and said that, Certainly wasn't me she said that to. But, I mean, the first time when I was back in high school, the first time I ever took a girl to the drive-in, after the first movie, I said to her, "How'd you like to go in the back seat?" She said, "No, thanks. I'd rather use the restroom." These are things that stick with a guy for a long time,
I love it because I can relate to all that stuff.
I hope some of our listeners can too.
Oh, I'm sure they can. They're out there. They're nuts. I know most of the people that I know listen on a regular basis. They're insane. Of course they are. They're listening to my show.
Well, I see that the hour is fast approaching, so I was just going to sort of sum up.
Okay, go ahead.
Right now, I wanted to share this with some of my listeners. They might be interested. Right now, I'm on a special fun diet. I'm losing 1 ounce a day watching porn on the internet. So that's a fun diet. You don't lose a lot of weight, but it's a start.
At least you're using the internet now.
Yeah. So I always believe the old expression. If you ask me, I always say the glass is half full. But I've evolved so far metaphysically that my next question is, who drank the other half, and am I going to get charged full price? When people say to me, at your age, you're sort of, what makes you still think you can make it as a comedian? I say, I always think of the guy that invented Preparation G. He was so close, if he would have hung in for one more letter, he would have been very wealthy, But a lot of people say to me, where do you get your sense of humor? And I said, I get my sense of humor from my dad. When my dad was on his deathbed in the hospital, I said, "Dad, you want to be buried or cremated?" He said, "Surprise me." So if anybody who's interested, August 19th, I'm going to be here appearing at the Hollywood Bowl. Lane 17 and 18, a bunch of us are going up there for this bowling tournament. You'll be able to find me up there, And let me share with everybody before we leave what my philosophy of life is. My philosophy of life is every day, if I can make one person laugh, one person smile, and one person happy, then I'm pretty much of a failure because I'm not reaching a whole heck of a lot of people.
Oh, my gosh.
So, the first time Barry said to me, "Can you make any money as a comedian?" I said, "It actually can be quite lucrative." I did a show in January and passed out some cards. This guy calls me up a month later. He says, I got this Rotary Club up in Palos Verdes, and we need an MC and a comedian for the weekend. Are you available? I said, yeah. He says, well, you're not real expensive, are you? I said, well, things have been pretty good lately, I said, but the most I could afford to pay you guys would be like $200. And they must have wanted more because I never heard from them again, Hey, so that's it for me today, guys.
All right, let's give it up for Alan. Alan Hamburger, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, what a fun hour. I had a blast. Thank you very much for coming today, and it was a good.
I am available if anybody needs an MC comedian for any of your groups. I do weddings, birthday presents, and anniversary. You want to give somebody an anniversary present, give them a comedian.
Right. And how can they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me at my email address, which is groundround@sbcglobal.net.
Okay. And do you do weddings, bar mitzvahs, brisses, and all that?
Any kind of funerals?
Yeah.
Actually, my best friend died like about 2 months ago, and I didn't go to the funeral because I'm just not a mourning person. But